wild conspiracy theories, but has not put one bill on jobs, one bill on testing, one bill on employment on the floor of the Senate since Leader McConnell called us back. And they won't even commit to a debate on law enforcement reform. You might think that an economic crisis, a public health emergency, on top of a searing reminder of racial injustice, might have put the conspiracy caucus on pause, but no such luck. The American people should call their Republican senators. They should demand action. The Republican Senate is failing to meet this important moment, and the Republican president isn't doing any better. In a week marred by unacceptable violence and rioting in some places, the president advocates more violence, more chaos, more disorder, including appalling attacks on the constitutional rights of protesters on his front porch. I am heartbroken by stories of peaceful protesters who've been injured when the protests turn ugly. I'm heartbroken by reports of police officers who are doing their job the right way, striving to keep the peace, who have been gravely injured. 3 of New York's finest were injured yesterday while assigned to prevent looting. A New York State trooper in Buffalo was run over the other night. I wish New York State Trooper Ron Ensminger and the Buffalo police officers injured in these disturbing incidents a speedy and full recovery, and thank them for their service and commitment to public safety. But let me state once again unequivocally that the cause of justice and change sought by protesters in and beyond is undermined by lawlessness and violence. But President Trump, however, seems too incapable of acknowledging the fact that that overwhelming number of peace protesters are peaceful and are simply advocating change. He seems incapable of turning the temperature down to prevent more violence. Quite the opposite. The President wants Americans to falsely believe that all the people who are protesting for a good cause, equality and racial justice, are violent. Nothing could be further from the truth. The overwhelming majority are doing what our founding fathers did, protesting to make this nation a better nation. They should be praised, not vilified. In a week marred by unacceptable violence and rioting in some places, the president advocates chaos and disorder, including appalling attacks on the constitutional rights on his front porch. My goodness. My goodness. Earlier this week, Americans watched federal officers under the direction of the President and the Attorney General use gas and rubber bullets to disperse a crowd of peaceful protesters in the park. The Lincoln Memorial was blocked off by rows of camouflaged officers. There are reports right now that troops from Fort Drum and Fort Bragg are camped outside Washington, D.C. I would ask the leaders of our military, if these reports are true, what are they doing there, and what are their orders? The leader, a few minutes ago, mentioned Tiananmen Square. Of course, no one believes that we are China or like China. Of course not. We're a democracy and we're proud of it. And most of us love and praise the right for peaceful protest. But I would remind the Republican leader, when any president, particularly an overreaching one like this, steps over the line, if good people don't raise their voices, that is the way to erode democracy, which China does not have. Where is Leader McConnell's voice? Instead of spinning these crazy theories, why doesn't he just speak out against what the president did Monday night? Why did he block our resolution, our simple resolution, which called for only 3 things? 1, praise the protesters. 2, condemn violence. And 3, condemn the president for what he did. Our nation's capital is being patrolled by federal officers, commanded by President Trump and Attorney General Barr, who refuse to identify who they are and where they come from. What is President Trump doing to this democracy, to the rule of law, the primacy of the Constitution? And where are the Republican Senate voices, Leader McConnell and everyone else here, condemning what he did? Again, democracy will be eroded if we don't stand up for it, if we're afraid to speak out, afraid to tell President Trump he's overreaching and done bad, bad things when he does them. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. We've had statement after statement from Americans of all political stripes. I read George Will, for instance, the other day. He's a conservative, but he cares about America and he's got some principle. And then the most remarkable of all, issued by President Trump's former Secretary of Defense. I want to read some of what former Secretary Mattis said. Quote, "When I joined the military some 50 years ago, I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution. Never did I dream that troops taking that same oath would be ordered under any circumstance to violate the constitutional rights of their fellow citizens, much less provide a bizarre photo op for the elected commander-in-chief with military leadership standing alongside. We know that we are better than the abuse of executive authority that we witnessed in Lafayette Square." Mattis continues, "Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime who does not try to unite the American people, does not even pretend to try. Instead, he tries to divide us. We are witnessing the consequences of 3 years of this deliberate effort. We are witnessing the consequences of 3 years without mature leadership. We can unite without him, drawing on the strengths inherent in our civil society. This will not be easy, as the past few days have shown, but we owe it to our fellow citizens, to past generations that bled to defend our promise, and to our children," unquote. That was President Trump's former Secretary of Defense, James